You have to get ready. Your husbands are coming tomorrow and you need to leave my house. Go and have your last meal in this house.
But Papa, I am just 15 years old. Why?
My parents were going to marry me off to settle their debt. I grew up in a polygamous family. My mom was the number 3 wife. My dad had 5 wives. I grew up with 21 siblings, 3 boys and 18 girls. It was a tribe and tradition for a man to have a male child. My dad's first and second wives were unable to birth any male child. They were seen as barren women who were unable to bear the real children since a female child is not considered an heir. I never saw my dad's first wife, only her grave that was behind her hut. She had given birth to 7 girls. According to my mom, she had died carrying the 8th pregnancy, though she was advised by the midwife not to attempt getting pregnant again. But she refused because she couldn't bear the shame of not having a real child, that is, a male child. She couldn't bear to see her co-wife give birth to the first male child, though my dad had also warned her not to conceive again, but she refused and took him. She died during labor, though it was a male child as she wanted, but he also passed on with her immediately after she died. That was when my mom came into the picture. She gave birth to 6 of us and 2 boys and 4 girls. While my dad's 4th wife gave birth to 6 daughters and a son. I was worth more than my elder sister because I was young, pretty, more endowed and a virgin. They had sold us off one by one to send my brothers to school and pay for their apprenticeship. All my sisters were already married off. Immediately they saw their womanhood, except I and my younger sister, Ewumi, who was 12 years old and hadn't seen her womanhood. We were the sacrificial lambs, me and my 2 sisters and my 14 stepsisters. And now it is my turn. We were like corn and yam to be traded for a better deal. But I had a plan. I was just 15, but I had seen my womanhood 1 year ago. So I knew what I had to do even before the set date. I was the youngest, yet I had the boldness of my father. My beauty came from my grandmother. I took nothing from my mother because I hated her so much as she despised me. You are different, you are stubborn and useless, she would often say to me. I would reply, why? Because I refuse to be like you. Instead of sweeping and cooking, I prefer reading the few books I secretly took from my eldest brother in reward to do his assignments, which I don't mind as far as he lets me have his books without anyone knowing. Females weren't allowed to go to school. They believe female education ends in the kitchen, but male can do whatever they want. Don't worry, a husband will cure you, my mother would often say. Whenever she finds me not interesting or not listening to her usual morning sermon about how to please a man, I would often respond, did yours cure you? And she would chase me with the slippers. But I was faster than her. I was the fastest in the entire community. So one morning, my father called me and my brothers together for a meeting. My mother was forbid to attend, but I could see the grin on her face as she prepared the meal and boiled the meat we were eating during the meeting. I already knew what was to come. My mother wouldn't smile while cooking for me to eat with my father and brothers. My father said, you have seen your womanhood now, so it is time to contribute to the well-being and welfare of the family, my stepbrother added. As you know, your stepbrothers need to pay their fees and renew their apprenticeship, so it is on you now to support the family that has supported you to this stage. My brothers had no brain. They have failed their examination countless times, but my dad was bent on making them go to school. I turned and I saw my mother smiling and nodding her head as she stood by the kitchen door, listening and watching me, forbidding to even sit with her family for this meeting. Okay, Papa, I will do as you say. I heard my voice say in a voice I did not recognize. My father was surprised. I guess he expected a fight, but I wasn't going to give them that pleasure. I had always been the goat among my family, and everyone knew it. I was as stubborn as a goat. Good, you see your womanhood had brought you wisdom. Prepare for your husband, will come in the next 3 days. Your dowry had already been paid in full. I couldn't let my father marry me off to that old man. Chief Money He was an abuser and a womanizer. Over the years, he had married 8 wives and 5 died due to the constant beating and maltreatment. And of course, his wife couldn't seek for help because no one would give them a listening ear. You see, in our village, it's either you give birth to a son you could use to communicate, else nothing. Chief Money was known for treating his younger and older wives as slaves. They work on his farm day and night without rest. I had overheard my stepmother telling my mom about talking my dad out of marrying me off to Chief Money. But my mom ignored her and told her to mind her business. After all her daughters had been married off, or should I say sold off. I prepared a plan to run away, but I couldn't because there was no means of transportation in the village, and I didn't want to marry Chief Money. I wandered around the bush, not plucking herbs as usual for Neneoma. My eyes were welled up with tears, knowing I couldn't escape from this nightmare. "Why are you crying, my dear child?" said a voice. I turned behind, my stomach grumbled involuntarily, seeing Neneoma. She was too old to come out in the bushes alone. Considering her old age, she could have sent someone to come look for me if she so wanted the herbs. "No, Neneoma," I pretended, blowing my nose and sniffing back my tears. "Oh, child, I know how painful it is to be married against your will," she said. I was stunned and surprised while looking at her with a questioning gaze. "How did you know, Neneoma? Don't you want to escape and achieve your dreams?" she asked with a shaking smile. She was the only one who knew my passion. "I want to go to school and be a better doctor and treat a lot of people for free." I nodded. She asked me to follow her. I quickly came behind her, assisting her as she led the way. We walked for about few minutes. I was scared that it would hurt her health. Then I asked her if she would want to rest for a few minutes before we continue. And she said no, that we would be right there, she said, smiling, revealing her brown teeth. We walked for some few minutes more before we stopped. She turned towards me. "Close your eyes," she requested with a motherly tone. "Nene, why?" I asked, gazing behind her. "Did you trust me?" I nodded, signing that I trusted her more than my life itself. "Then close your eyes," she said. I took in a few breaths before I closed my eyes. She smiled and she crumbled her hands against the wall, clearing a bush path. "Open your eyes now," she spoke, and I did. My gaze fluttered as I viewed the other side of Ikemba town. Ikemba was the main capital of our village. It was 200 miles away from our village. It was a busy town, though it was still a village, but few people had electricity. My father had always told us stories about it. The title, Ikemba Kingdom, when pronounced by my father, sound heavily like the type of noise associated with bomb. It was deep and so mysterious that my father always voiced in a hushed tone, wearing such a respect expression as if he were speaking of gods. Going to Ikemba Kingdom must surely be like paying the gods a visit. Ikemba Kingdom must then be like heaven. "Nene, how did we get here in a couple of minutes? I thought coming here would take about 48 hours, I voiced my question. She laughed while shaking her wooden walking stick. She said, "I guess being the oldest woman, I am the only person who knows this short passage. When I'm about to die, I will tell the next oldest person in line. This road is for our ancestors and it is confidential," Nene said while she sat on the ground. As we watched the busy road, "You remember the first time I met you here?" I nodded, remembering that day. I was out as usual, just plucking leaf and trying to come up with some treatments for scorpion antidote, cause it had stung my friend. "I thought you had already found the secret passage. I was scared not even the king knew about this road," she muttered. "But I realized that you don't know anything about this road," she laughed softly. "You know you are the only child I trust," Nene told me. It was truth and I knew it. Nene, apart from the kids, boys and girls of my age, though Nene cared for them, but she never trusted them. "I would rather break the rules than to let you down," she spoke. I felt emotional. Tears welled up in my eyes. Not even my mother could understand or do half of the things she had done for me. She was the only one who trusted and believed in me. I could remember clearly how she would give me money to buy books from my brothers, since there were no bookshop in the village, not even the next village. Sometimes I work in other people's farm to earn some money, but I soon realized that after I was done with the job and request for my pay, they would tell me that my mom had already collected the money for my job. When I get home and confront my mom, she would ask me if I'm paying for living in her husband's house and how ungrateful I was. But Nene always made sure she find ways for me to get books. I was able to learn how to write and read on my own. I was only privileged to meet the village typewriter once in the Yam Festival, and as God may have it, he was so fond of me. I noticed how he always looked at my body with such admiration. But I was aiming for one thing that day, which I got from him in promise to meet him at Ikemba Kingdom. After giving me his address, but I never showed up, he had helped me with some correct words and a spelling book to straighten my pronunciation. When you get there, go straight to the bus stop and take a bus that will take you to the big city of Lagos. There you will see help and meet a lot of educated people and things you may have never dreamt of. Nene said with a lot of smile in her voice. Things like what? I asked. Don't mind me, just some old woman imagination, she said, laughing softly, but she knew I wanted to know more. Okay, I will tell you. You see, I was once a young girl like you too. I was once a maiden in Ikemba Kingdom. Once when the missionaries came, I was able to collect one of their new newspaper. There were beautiful cars and roads, lots more, she said. How can I thank you enough? I asked, sniffing back my tears. Don't thank me, she said with a smile, losing her wrapper as she put some cowries in my hands. My eyes widened, seeing such an amount of money for the first time. Nene, how? You need this more than me, please take it. What would you survive on if I take this? She laughed, seeing me worried. Don't be naive, my dear. You know about the privilege I get being the oldest person in this village, right? I nodded, knowing fully well. Good. Take this money. Go get your things by night and flee away from this village, my child, Nene said. Where do I run to, Nene? How do I survive? I have never been anywhere else rather than this village. I expressed my fear to her. The thought of leaving the only place I had known all my life came to me. I held my hand and she said in a comforting tone, you would be fine. You would come out victorious and build the schools for girls and electricity and good road, like you had seen in those books of yours that you had shown me one time. Thank you, Nene, I murmured, embracing her. Thank you for believing in me. She said we should come, let's go before people notice our absence. Before we left, we closed the passage back so no one would notice what happened. We headed back home. I couldn't stop smiling on my face. As soon the day got darkened, I was so happy, and for the first time, I assisted my mom to clean the kitchen and prepare the family dinner. After we had gone to bed, it was about 1 a.m. in the morning. Quickly as possible, I packed all my useful clothes and wrappers. I sneaked out of the hut, dropping the lamp on my bedside, kissing my sleeping younger sister goodbye. I quickly checked outside the hut if someone was out. I quickly ran out. I was setting my leg to run when my mom, with an envious grin in her face, shouted, "My husband, oh, come and see you." She shouted enough to wake the whole villagers. I kept my gaze on my mom. As soon as she shouted, my dad ran outside his hut, carrying his wrapper against his waist. My mother began to say, I told you that before she accepted the marriage plan, that it was too easy, and you said I was talking too much. Thanks to the gods of the land, I have took it upon myself to be monitoring her till her husband come to take her. My mother said this with a gleam of victory lurking in her eyes. Even before I could realize myself, my dad took a koboko cane made from animal skin to beat me. I felt an instant joint of pain throughout my body. You want to run, Abby, and bring shame and disgrace into this family that had done nothing but cater for you. Ungrateful child, my dad said, hitting me with the cane. I screamed and cried, and the cane made my skin to bleed immediately it touched my skin. My dad didn't stop. Everybody woke up due to my scream. They held their lips in disbelief as my mom began to explain how I had almost run away. My dad beat me with the cane till I lost consciousness. I had fainted for 7 hours, blood gushing out of my body. The next time I had awakened, it was already past noon. My eyelid felt heavy, same as my head, realizing that my brother had joined my dad to beat me. I thought your womanhood had given you wisdom, but you are still stubborn and ungrateful animal. My elder brother said while he continued beating me beside my dad with his old belt that was made in 1889. So you don't want us to pay our school fees and apprenticeship. Now I see that you are an enemy of progress, my stepbrother said, clenching his teeth as he beat me hard on the back. My signed blood with tears as I felt more pain and wounds on my skin. My mom stood against the hut and was laughing and wailing in pretense. I didn't raise her like this, so the beating is not even enough. What if she had escaped and bring shame into this family? My mom narrated as she gossiped to her friends who were watching me and smiling. All these children of nowadays are very ungrateful. After raising them and feeding them, they get to womanhood and would still have the audacity to refuse to submit to their husband. What other use do they have other than to serve their families and husband? One of my mom's friends added. All these children will not kill us someday. That was how Oloma ran away. But as luck may have it, the news was quickly spread and the people from other community caught her. One of the women spoke. Wait, is it Oloma Chief Adamu's younger daughter? One of the women asked in disbelief. Yes, exactly the one we all know in this village, the other lady confirmed. She had seen her womanhood last 3 months back and Chief decided to marry her off quickly. But she ran away. She thought she was still a child, one of the women said. None of my daughters who had seen their womanhood would stay under my roof up till 1 year. Mamachi, you tried though. My daughters were married off the same day they saw their womanhood, the other woman said beside my mom. Well, I knew Oloma. She was just 13 and had seen her womanhood a couple of months ago. She must have been scared of the thought of being married to a man 10 times older than her. I couldn't even imagine what she had been going through. I was caged like a prisoner inside my dad's yam barn. My whole body was in pain. I almost fainted again. I stood up and I realized that I could die from excessive blood loss. I was very hungry by now. A few minutes after gathering my breath, I took a walk towards the gate of the yam barn, but realized that my father had locked it from outside. I sat on the edge of the locked gate of the yam barn, helplessly, not knowing what else to do. I had failed myself. I had failed Nene. She shouldn't have believed in me so much. Though I was hungry and thirsty, but I slept off after much tears. I was woken by someone's small voice. I knew that instant that it's my younger sister. What are you doing here? I asked my sister, not wanting to get her in trouble. I knew that you are hungry. I brought food for you, my sister said, passing the bean cake wrapped in leaf for me. My stomach grumbled as it perceived the bean cake. Do you want to get in trouble? I asked in a scorned tone. No, I won't. I remained some of my food for you, my younger sister said with an innocent smile. Thank you so much. You have to leave now, I urged her. I was afraid for her. Your husband is coming to get you tomorrow, my younger sister said. Run away, please. I cleaned my running nose, trying to stop my endless tears. I tried opening the lock, but it was an ancient lock, so I couldn't break it. I cried my eyes out till I fell asleep again. I was later woken up by someone opening the yam barn. I knew it was my father. He was the only one who had the keys to the barn. He stood above me with his angry eyes gazing at me. Behave yourself. Go in and take your bath and eat your last meal in this house. Your husband is on his way.